Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and everybody in between. My name is Kexman, and you are watching the Dragonflight Consortium here on Bonus Roll Productions, but it's not much of a consortium if I am by myself, and I'm very, very lucky to be joined by two fantastic folks today. First off, we have SamTalkz. Sam, how are you doing? How's the day treating you?
The day has been treating me really, really well so far, Kex. I've been, playing the Dragonflight Alpha a little crazy amount and having a really enjoyable time with that so far.
Yeah, it's been great fun. And Manny, obviously, the TruVillianManny is here with us as well. How are you doing, good sir?
Kex, I am doing fantastic. I got my last day of work in, long weekend. Gonna be away, but as soon as I get back, gonna be right back into the alpha because, they're moving fast. They are moving fast.
They are indeed moving fast. For those of you that saw the last week's episode, we were obviously talking about some of the new stuff that was put in. We had 2 new dungeons in Uldaman and Neltharis. We obviously had the Evoker starting zone, but now we have had a new build, and that has included some really interesting things. We have had the Waking Shore open up, which is the introductory area to Dragonflight, as well as a brand new dungeon, Ruby Life Pools, and Shamans, which, don't worry, Manny, we'll get to the Shamans in just a bit. But starting off, obviously last week's build, we saw the Evoker starting zone. We had the 2 dungeons, Uldaman and Neltharis. Sam, how did you feel about that opening alpha hit that we actually had there? I think Sam has gone.
Yeah, I'm living the tough life right now with my internet.
He's living on the edge.
Everyone.
He's living on the edge. He's living on the edge. I don't know whether you caught any of that, but the obviously the last week's build, Uldaman, Neltharis, and the Evoker starting zone. How were your experiences with those 3 main focus points?
They were really good, in my opinion. I think everything so far that we've seen coming out of Dragonflight has just been a hit after hit. For me personally, anyways, I've enjoyed the zones that we've gotten to see so far, and the Dracthyr starting zone, the Evoker starting zone, has just been... every single thing that we've seen so far has been breathtaking art-wise. The landscapes, the skybox, just the creatures that inhabit each and every single zone has been so well done, and everything that Blizzard is doing right now is just showing that the art team consistently can knock it out of the park. And as for the 2 dungeons, I was actually really surprised at, first of all, Uldaman. That's returning to a classic, right? So I thought that was going to be a little bit boring, but they have retuned it in such a way that once you split off and go into it, because it's nice to go in, see the old, and then break off and then go into the new. And that was a lot of fun for me. And Neltharis, I think Neltharis is going to be a lot of fun for Mythic Plus. I can already see how routes are going to play out and what we're going to skip and what we're going to have to not be able to skip and things like that. It's going to be so much fun.
It's going to be a real good time. And, Mythic Plus, you've touched upon that. We're going into these dungeons on a normal and a heroic level. So there's still, there's probably some abilities missing. There's probably a couple of things. Obviously, not all the classes going in there have their talent trees completed. So, yeah, the dungeons are exciting. But I think it's going to be a little while until we fully see their potential. I mean, especially when we have more of them unlocked and we can do them on the Mythic difficulty as well. How about yourself, Manny? Evoker starting zone, Uldaman, Neltharis, anything that immediately jump out of you? Or is it very much the same as what I've seen from a lot of people, which is, damn, this is good?
Honestly, it's not so much about what's in the zones, it's what's not in the zones. These zones are so expansive. They're the biggest zones we've ever come across, especially as their span. And they're organic, they're lived in. There are a town here and a stretch of basically nothing. Basically just your own playground to do whatever you want. And it's not that on rails sort of theme park that we've been having for so long. You actually see that this seems like a world that has been built, that has been left for ages, and that's same thing that we've now seen this week. And I love that. I love that you can find your own little corner of the world, that there isn't this hero, come over here. And then you're like, I need you to take this to the next town. And it's like, dude, that's 10 steps over. What are you doing? So like, I love it. I love it. The dungeons kind of echo that. They do seem like they're actual buildings, actual layers or pass through. They're not really set up in this quote unquote mythic plus, like you could see the roots. Like it's going to be a lot, especially in Oldemon. It's going to be about what packs can I pull together to condense this, because that's virtually a straight shot. I really am going to love what people do in order to optimize those routes, because it isn't going to be about like, oh, we're going to go left or right. It's going to be pack A, pack B, but not pack C. And can we perhaps do a couple of things? And that's really going to change up the comps like we've seen before. Maybe we see the return of rogues to do skips depending on where those happen. I really think that one of the big things that with the dungeons is what you were saying. We haven't seen all all of the mechanics, all of the abilities. So I don't even think we were supposed to be in heroic, like we were able to test, but it just feels like there's some big gaps there. And until I get that, I don't want to give my final deliberation on like these bosses, because Nathalis, that last boss, it's missing something.
Yeah, it definitely is. Obviously, you have the shields. Warlord Saga, I believe, is the name of the boss, the last boss of Neltharis. You have the shields that you need to break, and then there's obviously a big sort of like fire shield. I also want to touch upon it. This. I think the scaling is also a little bit wonky at the moment. We're doing way too much damage compared to the health of some of these bosses, and
yeah,
the last boss of Uldaman as well, Chronolord Deus, I feel as though needs a little bit extra. One thing I did put forward as feedback was, if we are this deep into Uldaman, surely there should be some Uldaman security protocols. Something along those lines, maybe to make the fight a little bit more difficult. Going back to something that you said, Sam, in regards to the art team, and I think we can all agree the art team for this expansion have just absolutely smashed a home run out of the park. We're not dealing with just, the Maw anymore. This is a living, breathing world. We touched upon Evoker's starting zone. Just how long did you spend in the character creation screen for your Drakthir? Because that character creation is next level.
Listen, it's way too long is all I'm gonna say about that. I was losing my mind over the hair options. I'm like, oh my gosh, this hair is so good. This is so good. Everything that they're doing here is so much fun to be able to mess with individual highlights and the color tone of just your Drakthir, and then when you go into your visage form, seeing how granular you can get with each of the details, whether you can have scales on your face or not, the curvature of the horns and everything. It is unbelievable. And I know there's been a lot of talk on Twitter about, one day hopefully the rest of the races will get this level of granularity, because if so, that is just going to set World of Warcraft on that next level. Personally, because a lot of Warcraft is that personal touch, that personal you in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Manny, you've obviously spoken. I've seen you talking about the Evokers previously on Twitter and in Discord as well. Is that did you go in there deciding that you were absolutely going to go for a certain color? And then, maybe your mind was changed when you saw some of the options available, or did you take a look, you go in there thinking, oh, I'm definitely going to go for a green Dragonflight. You see the options available and suddenly you go, actually, no, bronze Dragonflight. Were there any surprises in there for you?
Oh, man. I went in blind. I didn't have any preconceptions of what I needed to be, what I wanted to be. And honestly, while you were like saying, oh, how long did you spend? I'm like, wait a second, I did videos of going through the options. So just going through the options, I have 5 videos that are roughly 25 minutes on average. So I went over a good amount of time, 2 hours plus on the customizations just to get the footage and to get the details. So when I finally put it together, it was just like, oh, what can I do? I could do something that's like reminiscent of the Infinite Dragons. So I kind of wanted to do something that was like a little bit different from not one of the main fights. And yeah, I went Twilight Dragon. Then I went into the like visage form, trying to like get that to match. And there is so much in there. And I'm really happy that they're saying like, yeah, this is the bar we're setting, and then we're gonna bring those other races up. And I love that. One thing I want them to do though, let our visage forms be other races.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that will happen. I think that will happen. I mean, in the Waking Shores, we've already seen, I think there's one of the red dragonflights that turned into a Vulpera, which is, you know, it was very, very strange to me to see this massive, I think it's the Major Domo actually, this massive dragon to just down into this small little fox. I thought that was just this tiny, it was brilliant. I think, I don't know whether we'll see maybe the same level, like maybe the same amount, because I think if I remember rightly, they said somewhere within the region there are 8 quadrillion different like if you were to do all of the variations, it would be something like over 8 quadrillion, which is just a number I can't even really comprehend at this point. But the idea of having those options available, I would absolutely love to see brought into the other races. And did either of you two have the bug last week where when you created an evoker, you had to create a second one because you got locked on the starting screen in the starting zone?
No,
I did not. No,
no, there was. Yeah, there was. So first time on the Wednesday, I went into the Dragonflight Alpha because I flew back from TwitchCon EU. Sorry, I went straight into the Dragonflight Alpha. I was like, yes, and I went through and I spent probably 45 minutes making my evoker, changing the visage form, just really getting into the fine minutiae of it. And then I press play, and then the cutscene bugs out. The camera's stuck inside a mountain, and for those of you that haven't done it, when you start, obviously the evoker starting zone, you are trapped in what effectively is like a time lock, and then you break out of it. You couldn't break out of the time lock, so you just sat there looking at the quest giver in front of you, not able to do anything. So what you had to do was you had to back out of the game, delete the evoker, and then go back in with a fresh evoker. So I spent 45 minutes creating a character that I then couldn't use. And speaking of using evokers, now DPS and healer spec for both of them. We've obviously got the destruction and the preservation. Come to you first, Manny. Have you had much time with either of the specs? If so, which one have you spent more time with?
Destruction has been the go-to for me. Been loving it, figuring it out, and then figuring out like how to actually balance those spells was great. Haven't had much time on preservation, because there's like a couple of builds. Like first, everybody's like, oh, I'm going to do like all fire, or then they switch and they're like, I'm going to do all ice. And then I found, hey, wait a second, you mix the two, because I'm not a mage. I can do 2 schools at once. You mix the two, and you can do some fantastic things. And when you are soloing with those, yeah, that's when it becomes the ranged demon hunter, where you're just zipping around and being like, you will never catch me.
Yeah, because we need another demon hunter style class in the game. I've played around with the DPS stuff, and I don't know whether it's just me not. I have almost zero experience as a caster, so I don't know whether it is that's a caster as in the class, not as in the actual thing. I'm a great caster, hire me. And Sam as well, and Manny while you're at it, all 3 of us, let's do it.
Yeah, just get us all on the panel.
Yeah, just get all on the panel.
Let's go.
Great.
Get us behind the RWF desk.
Let's go. But yeah, outside of that, I think I would, it could be my inexperience as a caster class, but I often found that the red, you mentioned, Manny, that the red side and the blue side, I found that the red spells felt a little bit clunky. I don't know whether it was just me, but but then when I switched to blue, which was obviously a much quicker pace, that to me felt a lot more fun. That to me felt a lot more reactive. So I'm not sure whether the switching is the way to go down, but you do have the ways to go down either side. I'm not sure your experiences with that one, Sam, if you've done like either of the evoker, the red, the blue, the mixing of the two, the DPS.
So I've pretty much been sticking to the red side of the tree pretty much this entire time, and I do agree with the clunky feeling, especially when you're doing solo individual targets or when you're fighting a boss or something like that. The thing that I've noticed though is that I have a lot of fun when I'm in the middle of a dungeon and we have those big pools where the entire like the tanks are just insane, and they're pulling almost everything in the room. And then you throw down your firestorm, you do your fire breath right into living flame that shoots out the 4 fireballs across all of the targets. And then you just keep spamming pyre over and over again. To me, the way that I have it set up, it's just so much fun to have that much damage goes in. And I think that's where a lot of the clunkiness starts to go away, is with the AoE aspect of fire. But I haven't messed around too much with blue. I think I'm going to probably end up doing that sometime in the next week or so, because I do want to see how that side of the tree plays. But I've personally been having a lot of fun with the red side. I think it just fits my chaotic play style.
The red feels like. Sorry, Manny, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah. Honestly, I think that when you're in the group content, when you have somebody that's going to take that aggro off of you, red just goes insane because you have the damage over time and you have the time to build up that sort of stuff. Blue is all about control, and I think that's why you're going to start using it in PvP and in solo content, because you can just get single talent, any blue spell that hits, 50% snare for 3 seconds. You lay that on people, they're not going to get near you, and that's where mixing it in comes into play, because you will weave in fire and ice, or red and blue, and that'll keep them away. You use your hover to get some more distance if you need to, but like red does so much of that dots and like extra damage over it. Plus you use, like, every so often you'll use the immediate full empowerment on a spell, instant flame breath at full thing,
right,
and it just wrecks. It's so much fun. Mixing the two is really how you do it, because if you can get off an instant red spell, or even a cast and then reapply your slow with the Azure Strike, instant speed, 50% snare again, that's how you kind of stay alive, because evokers seem very much paper. They do not take hits well.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
No, they don't.
They feel like glass cannons.
Yeah, for being a scaly dragon, I'm surprisingly quick to die.
That's because you're ripping all the aggro with those red Dragonflight spells.
Yeah. I treat them as frost mages without the ice block. You're just like, control the area, get the hell away, blink, or
you can move quick, though.
Hover.
You can move quick, so there is that.
Hover is like, I don't know what it is about that ability, but I have so much fun using it. It's like, okay, things are about to get bad. Time to hover away, dash in front. You get the 70% extra movement speed boost, and then you're zipping around all over the place. It's a lot of fun, and then the ability to be able to cast while moving is also, it just makes hover that much more fun. And it's also one of the reasons why I wish we could have the level 70 talents, that we could get the full access to the tree, so that way we can see how the rest of it all interacts. Because I'm like, there's that one talent that it's gonna change everything if I can have access to it.
I went straight down more points.
Yeah, I just went straight down for it. I was just like, double hover, and now I can use hover even when it's on cooldown, and then I'm fine forever.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then you pick up the talent that allows you to reset the movement cooldowns, or you be able to use it once in between your entire party. Is so much fun.
It's great. I mean, you mentioned hover as a great ability. I would actually like to say there is a better ability in the Evoker toolkit. Fly with me. Now, I don't know if either of you have had fun with that ability. For those of you that don't know, Fly with me effectively flies you to your target's location, and then you fly with them to another location. It's like an advanced grip. It is so much fun to use, but as with most things in WoW, specifically pre-script, it has probably 25% of the time it is used for good. The rest of the time it is used for just pure evil. And yeah, that is... And I'm betting now, I guarantee you, the next race to World First, we are going to see someone that has insane talent with Fly With Me. It's going to be disgusting.
Yeah, I
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Manny. Sorry.
I mean, I was just going to say, especially if it becomes a meta where a DK or some of those slower tanks are going, I immediately was like, oh yeah, pick them up, drop them into the next pack, you're good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the great part about it is it's just like a baseline talent that you can pick up in the Drakthir part of the tree. So it's just it helps out, or the Evoker part of the tree. Sorry, it just it's going to be that little moment where mobility is going to be so useful, because like you said, the slower tanks or the slower DPS who might have a little bit of trouble getting out of something, we have a evoker here who can pick you up and move you around. If you miss the warlock gate, you can have someone to save your life and prevent a raid wipe or something like that. And that's just what the evoker feels like. It's just all about this mobility. Literally everything is set up for mobility. Their raid wide buff is the one that gives you the 15% reduction on movement abilities, the reset of the movement, your major movement ability. And so I think and then on top of that, they also have some like really nutty like Zephyr on the one of the final
Zephyr, great cooldown.
Great cooldown, throws everybody up in the air, and then it gives you a movement speed boost on top of reducing area of effect damage. I mean, we're definitely gonna see a lot of evoker.
I'm just picturing it now. You mentioned Warlock Gate and repositioning. I'm picturing it now. Mythic, 10 evokers of different specs, and 10 just other classes, and it's like, oh, we need to relocate the raid, and you just have this Ride of the Valkyries thing across the battlefield, just 10 evokers carrying the rest of the raid to where it needs to be. That would be, yeah, it would be absolutely beautiful.
I think you just gave Blizzard a raid mechanic there, Kex. I think you just gave them an idea.
I mean, if you think that's gonna be a thing, like obviously Warlock Gates can do it with just one Warlock. It's one of those things where it's for pure style.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Listen, if you're a raid boss and you see 10 Drakthir pulling your party across to the other side, that raid boss is gonna have some respect for you while it's pummeling your face in.
Oh, absolutely. Speaking of pummeling your face in, I mean, healing side of things, you want to make sure you can heal that pummeling side. Have either of you two had any experience with preservation? Sam, immediately the shake of the head. No, this is going to be weird for me. This is going to be weird for me to say, because I am Zug for life. Okay, I am warrior main, Zug melee brain, no think, only thunk. And I'm excited for the warrior trees, but I really enjoyed healing. Holy, like healing on a evoker, I have really enjoyed, with one problem. And Manny, I imagine you can probably guess here, because you look like you've done a little bit. How has your experience with preservation been so far?
So mostly my experience with preservation has been playing with somebody else in the party being preservation, but immediately their one flaw is being like just exploited in so many of these encounters, and that is the range, the short range. And I guess to a little bit, we say all about this movement. If they do not have spec'd into hover, or they're not really using that properly, movement hurts so much using the empower, using those cast times. They are not very mobile healers outside of hover. So with that in mind, yeah, you need to know where your evoker healer is, your preservation guy is, and you stick near them. You make sure that you are clumped together with everybody else that they need to heal, because if you're over here and the rest of the team is here, then that evoker is smart to let you die.
Yeah, it's the 25-yard range. Now, most healers, if I am correct in thinking this, again, never really played healers before. Most healers are 40 yards, if I think correctly. Most healers are 40 yards. So 25-yard range, we're like nearly 50% shorter. I was in a group with 2 rangers and a shadow priest. They're ranged and they've got 40-yard ranges on the bosses and the mobs. That was really difficult. However, if you are able to get a coordinated group, it feels so good. Depending on whichever, I mean, if you go down the bronze side of the talent tree, you've got some really potent single healing spells. If you go down the green side of the tree, you've got a really nice mix of AoE group healing. If you do both at the same time, you've got a really nice mix that can work really well in parties. You have effectively one of your main abilities means that you know, some of the your tank takes damage over time rather than in one big hit. You effectively turn any tank into a Brewmaster Monk. You have a fantastic ability that sets out an Emerald Blossom that effectively looks very, very similar to a Druid spell. It explodes. If you talent into Seedlings, those will explode out into various different members of the party and heal them, and then those can trigger the Emerald Blossom as well. It just feels really, really good. It's the first time I've ever played a healer, but it's also the first time I've ever sort of played a class where I've instantly gone, oh, I'm actually really enjoying this. So if you haven't played it yet already, Sam, I've got to say, you have to experience it because it is a lot of fun.
Okay, I'm gonna take your word for this thing, Kex. I'm gonna go in tomorrow. I'm gonna switch over to preservation, and I'm gonna queue up. And we're gonna see the chaos is gonna come out of that.
It's great fun. You've got the Dream Breath, which is obviously like the Fire Breath, but it heals. You know, it does feel really solid. Spirit Bloom is a fantastic spell to use. Again, the big concern is that 25-yard range. I am honestly worried for them in raids. Like, raid spots for Preservation Evokers is going to be really, really tough because most raid boss areas, I mean, I don't know if you've seen Lahuvium's room in Sepulchre, but if you've tried to get an Evoker on that, it ain't going to work. 25-yard range is going to be brutal, unless you make them fill a role that we haven't seen, that we've seen from, you know, maybe they're going to fill a very, very similar role that we've seen from Holy Paladins and Monks as well, where they almost form like a melee healing group. Maybe they could go down that route. We'll have to wait and see. They do have some very potent tools. The movement abilities, the cooldowns that Zephyr has mentioned, absolutely fantastic. You, as a preservation, you also get a cooldown. It's a 4-minute cooldown, but what it does, it will effectively rewind the damage your party has taken over the past X amount of seconds. It's beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful. And speaking of beautiful, this week we've had access to some new stuff as well, and we've mentioned the art team and how good they've been. Ooh. But my word, this week they have knocked it out of the park. We'll talk first about the new dungeon that we've had, and then we'll sort of transition into the area that new dungeon does take place in. But Ruby Life Pools, Sam, I don't know how much you've ran Ruby Life Pools. It's a quick dungeon. It feels like more of Souls 2.0, but it's a beaut.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I've run it once. I've only been able to run it once. The dungeon is so unbelievably beautiful, especially when you get to the final part of the dungeon where you're running around taking care of all of the fire elementals. But the marriage of colors is, oh my goodness, it is so good. And I feel like they've also messed around with the tech engine a little bit more, because you're seeing the pyres coming off of the flames, you're seeing like little sparks coming off of there, so it really gives this sense of, okay, we're on fire right now, but I'm also like breathtaking, like all this breathtaking beauty is making me want to cry a little bit, because this is, first of all, a really gorgeous zone, and second of all, this feeling of speed that we have to go and get this done quick, because, you know, everything's on fire. We got to get this done. And it was just so, Blizzard just knocked it out of the park with this dungeon. And it was going through it, playing it, even just the ones that I've been through, was a pleasure. Gameplay wise, I did like it, but I feel like might need a little bit of retuning, especially when you kill one of the fire elementals. They have that giant AoE explosion that you got to watch out for. That kind of threw me off guard every time that happened, because I'm like right up in their faces. I had to like hover right out of there immediately. Otherwise, I was too scared that I was not gonna be able to make it out in time.
Yeah, it does chunk. The trash you mentioned, obviously those blaze guards, they are fantastic with that explosion when they die. Also, the blaze of glory that I think it's the flame dancers do, where they spin, like when they hit 0 health, they effectively become immune, and they spend about 7 seconds just spinning, spitting out fire all over the place. So you have to avoid that. And I think you hit the nail on the head. The marriage of colors, the greens, the golds, the reds, it is beautiful, and it does feel like it's a case of, okay, this is we've got to get through this. We've got to get through this quickly. It is the first dungeon, I believe, in Dragonflight, so it's the first dungeon that people are going to do. And in my eyes, it's a really good dungeon to choose as as the #1 dungeon of the expansion.
And then when you get to the final boss, you're in this this beautiful landscape right in front of you while you're fighting it. And so then when you finish, it's just taking the sights.
You get to take in the sights, right click, leave instance group, and get straight back to what you were doing beforehand. Your experiences with this new dungeon, Manny, how are you going to gush just as much as myself and Sam, or do you have some different feelings?
Oh no, I'm pretty much gushing with you guys. I think this is kind of the Ulduar effect, because the environment changes as you go through. First, you're underground. It's dark. You've got the contrast of the colors, but there's like lights coming in from different sources. Then, like, as soon as you finish that first boss and you're flying up, that's when all the green starts just coming in, and it is absolutely gorgeous. But it doesn't fully open up because you have all the foliage and all of the green. And then finally, when you reach that last boss and you are just looking out to the horizon, if you can do that while avoiding all of the bad, it is gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. I agree with you guys. I also think that the way that they've built that dungeon is, the packs are small. The packs aren't like a big swarm of enemies. They are a few enemies, like maybe you're dealing with one dancer and like 2 fire elementals in a pack. And so you're going to be very much doing cleave damage in that. And I'm noticing that they're switching around some of these some of the ways that they build out these dungeons. And of course that means that, yeah, more variety in the damage profiles means more variety in what talents I want to bring, or even what classes are going to be, like, Bis. So they're really being careful about this, but my goodness, that dragon at the end with like all of those effects, like, I'll die just loving it.
It's brutal as a tank as well, because the tank smash effectively on normal, it's so when you get hit with a tank smash on normal, it's 25% extra nature damage taken for the next 60 seconds. On heroic, it's 50% extra nature damage taken. On mythic, it's 100. So that's gonna be
it's a brutal dungeon. Even on heroic, it has been a brutal, like, almost wiped a couple of times going through it, and I was like, okay, all right, the difficulty. This is fun. We're having a little bit of trouble going through here.
I mean, obviously scaling. We'll see how it plays out.
Right.
I think once we've got all the dungeons available, and you mentioned Ulduar there. I just kind of want to something that I've noticed in that. Obviously, we're dealing with we're dealing with the Dragon Isles. This is a place that has, it definitely is going to have touches of the Titans on there. We are going to have touches of the Titans and what they've done. And I don't know whether either of you two have noticed this, but it's something that I've kind of touched upon, or Sim. A lot of the Titan structures I'm seeing here remind me of Mists of Pandaria. Like, a lot of the aesthetics remind me of Mists of Pandaria, and I'm really liking that connection between the two, because obviously, as we know, the Titan constructs were pretty much all over the place, and they should all be around about the same, but I'm liking the connection that we're seeing between the two. Speaking of connections, we mentioned that vista on the final boss as you're overlooking the zone, and the Ruby Life Pools does take place in the Waking Shores, which is the new zone that has opened up the introductory quest line into Dragonflight. I want to get your feelings. I have my feelings, and I want to see if you two think the same way. We'll come to you first, Sam. Waking Shores, have you had much chance to go through the zone yet? Have you completed the Waking Shores?
Yes, I have completed the Waking Shores, and for what is the first part, I think, of Dragonflight that you're going to be experiencing of the Dragon Isles, I thought it was a really good introductory set piece. There was a moment, I'm not going to spoil it, but halfway through I was like, what? And then, it just keeps going forward with that. And to me, I think it's the sense of being back on Azeroth that Shadowlands didn't have, because I've talked about it so many times on my own stream. I didn't really care about the Shadowlands. I'm like, okay, there's these fantastical areas, and I know we're in the realm of death, and I know it's important that we stop them, but I just don't care about these Akirians. I don't really care, whatever. So to come back to Azeroth, to be more grounded in reality, is something that I like. The being able, knowing that what we're doing is directly influencing Azeroth rather than yes, we go into the realm of death, and yes, we stop the jailer, whatever, blah blah blah. That's all great and dandy. But now we're here, we're dragons and hippos, floating, flying hippos, and everything like that, and ducks. That is the fun of World of Warcraft to me, is this fantasy world, but not the sort of fantasy where I'm like, okay, this is starting to get a little out there. Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I mean, which is not to say that I don't appreciate what Shadowlands did or tried to do, but Dragonflight just feels so much more fleshed out.
Sam walking into the Shadowlands surrounded by Taurens, goblins, gnomes, and dwarfs going, well, now this is just unrealistic. Like, just looking at
right? This isn't fun anymore.
Exactly. No, I get exactly what you mean, and I think you've done a very, very good job of kind of giving a summary as to why Shadowlands felt a little bit off, in that Warcraft is always a fantasy game, but there's always a slight grounding, not necessarily in reality, but there's a grounding to it. Shadowlands just felt so different. Your experiences with the Waking Shore, Manny, has it been a beautiful experience for you, or do you feel as though you're ready to go back to bed after the Waking Shore? No. Waking Shore, going back to bed, does that work?
The Waking Shore was definitely a wake up call.
Oh my word!
I really do like what you guys are saying. For me, I call it the difference between when you're running around in vanilla and it's fantasy, and when you go into the Burning Crusade or later parts of Legion and it becomes high fantasy, that melding of sci-fi and fantasy, which some people like, but I'm not the biggest fan of. So like when I walked away in the Burning Crusade, people are like, why? And it's like, because there was like space lasers and flying blood elf ships. It didn't make sense to me anymore. And I think that's kind of where you guys were thinking with like Shadowlands, where it's like all these very abstract ideas. And it's great to be back on Azeroth, to see these races that we've like, you know, Faubourgs and like otters, even though they've got dragon horns. But like, I know what an otter is. It's you have that touchstone to it. So I really like that. They've also done such a great job with these biomes. If you saw Zereth Mortis and how like constructed things were, and we're like, that is cool, but like weird. This is a living, breathing world where yes, there's like lava and there's rivers and stuff, but like where it mixes, you see the water bubbling up. You see like these great little places, these amazing creatures that are both fantastical and yet like, again, grounded, realistic. Like I could see how that dragon actually could fly, instead of it being like, I'm floating on a disc and I am like this energy being with a fire head. It's
right.
It's just so much better. I love it.
Yeah. I agree with what you said too, because the juxtaposition between all of the zones, it feels like a world, and that's always what Shadowlands felt like. It felt sterile in a sense, because like the Valdraxis, it's all green, or you go over into Ardenweald, it's all forest. And while it makes sense, it's these zones have a sense of life to it, because that's, you can go from one place, it's a forest, to the next place, now we're in a frost zone because of something that happened, blah blah blah, or this or that. So it just feels better as you're progressing. It doesn't feel like you're just like in one section or one slice of pie.
Oh, for sure. And I think you touched upon a point there, that the Shadowlands zones, it's and I think it was, I'm trying to remember if it was, I can't remember who it was that said it. I think it might have been Taliesin that said that Shadowlands was nice. The zones, they were self-contained. They looked beautiful in their different areas, but they were so self-contained, you didn't see that bleed through. You didn't see the connection between them. You had to go through the airport terminal at Oribos to get to all the various different ones. It was like, okay, Ardenweald was really nice, and now to get something else, I've got to go through Oribos to get to somewhere, and it's like completely different. I don't see any connection between the two. This, you directly see the connection. You see waterfalls coming down from on Aram Plains into the Waking Shore. You can see the water coming down from Valdrakken and from Tierhold into the Waking Shore. It's a beautiful, beautiful zone. It's a, to me, it's probably, and I've only done it, I've only properly quested through it once, but I think it may take it may take the title of favorite WoW zone for me because it's just beautiful. It's open. The quest line is fantastic throughout it. The side quests, obviously, we're not going to spoil too much. You know, the storyline, I think, going through Waking Short is a very, very good storyline that answers, you know, a lot of questions come up. Did either of you two do any of the side quests?
I've done a couple, but there's one that involves a duck, a stuffed ducky.
Yes. Did you do that one, Manny?
No, I did all the side quests in the Azure span, and the way my testing schedule is, I typically finish the main story quest, and then I do side quests, and I do a bunch of exploration. So I think this phase, I'm probably gonna miss side quests.
So this isn't a major story spoiler, so don't worry if you're trying to stay away from spoilers. We're not going to worry too much about that. There is a side quest that takes place at the top of the Ruby life pools, where there is a small whelpling called Lilistraza. And Lilistraza is upset because they were flying around with their toy stuffed duck, and they hit a tree, and the stuffed duck is broken, and you have to fix the stuffed duck for them. And it is the cutest thing, and I swear if Blizzard do not get some voice acting for that, I will be so upset, because it's just one
quest.
It's just one side quest,
and it's so easy, it's so simple, but you just love it today because it's a whelpling, and they have this little ducky on their head, and the dialogue is just wrenching at your heart,
and they talk like a kid.
They talk like a kid. I was going through this, and I was like, we've taken on the Lich King, we've taken on Deathwing, we've beaten the jailer, and it's all led to this moment to help this whelpling fix her ducky.
They've got it, and it is great. They speak like a kid. It is fantastic. And the other side quest I do want to take point of is in the same area. It's just below. It's in like the little hall. It's 2 orcs. Manny, you mentioned you probably will miss the side quest. Sam, did you do the side quest with the 2 orcs?
No, I haven't.
I saw those 2 orcs though.
Yes, there is a side quest with 2 orcs, and obviously it's a side quest. I'll try not to go into too much detail, but the detail is very important for how the quest hits, because one of the orcs used to be part of the Dragonmaw clan, which, as we know, not very nice to dragons. They had a little place called Grim Batol that they may have, they may not have been nice to dragons.
Rented that
and this,
from the dwarves.
yeah, exactly. And this orc effectively is dying of old age, and is in this area surrounded by dragons, and is coming to terms with what they did to dragons and the fact that the dragons are helping them, but at the same time also coming to terms with the fact that, you know, maybe dying on the battlefield isn't all what we made it up to be. Kind of, it's like it's a very interesting quest where it looks at the difference between what the orcs believe to be honor, what actually is honor, this orc coming to terms. The dialogue in it is absolutely fantastic. It's only 2 quests, but it is absolutely fantastic. And I think someone on Twitter put it right where they said this quest is probably 20 minutes of your time. This does more to give an idea of you know, what the orcs and what the horde should be like versus, you know, or an orc coming to terms with what they have done. This 20 minutes was better than anything they did with Sorfang in BFA, and honestly, it's 100% true. It is incredible. It's great writing. It's something very, very small, but it's these little things. A storyline throughout a zone is important. These little side quests that show that the zone is active and doing other things, that's the most important thing to me.
Oh yeah. And I love the stay a while and listen text, the extra text that just fills in more of that. Like, they are doing a lot with the characters, with like just small characters that you may not see, or just are more to guide you along. But you talk a little bit more. We were talking about like, oh, this dragon turns into a Vulpera, and then you ask them, it's like, why in the world are you a Vulpera? And then you get the meaning behind that, and like, maybe it's a little on the nose, but like the fact that it's there, whereas before you would have completely glossed over it. And they're putting so much into this.
Oh yeah, I mean, we the sign-in book. Like, how great was that sign-in book?
Okay,
That sign-in
What
book was
choices?
so
What
tongue-in-cheek.
choices did you make? Like, what choices? Because I remember mine. I know what I made for that sign-in book.
Gosh, I'm trying to remember because
So-
well, I remember the middle one was in for epic loot, of course.
Oh yeah, exactly. No, that was the third one. It was what is your
Second one was
name?
your time.
Second one was
That's
your
right, the
time.
time.
Third one was what are you here for? And I know exactly what mine was. I signed in as Stonehead because that is a fantastic carry-on joke from Shadowlands. The second thing I signed was I don't believe in time. That was my second, and then the third one was just for the Horde because for the Horde. But yeah, I absolutely love that. We're running short on time here, so I want to get one last question into the both of you, and I'm going to ask this to everyone at the end of every single Dragonflight Consortium. Manny, will come to you first. Based on what you have seen so far, is Dragonflight a return to form for Blizzard?
I have to see what they do now that people are having issues. The return to form isn't about like them doing art. They've been doing that amazing. The return to form is how they're going to respond to interaction with their players' concerns, and that's the return to form that I want to see. This new philosophy that they've got going, the talk that they're doing. Now it's time to see if they are actually walking the walk, and if they do that, yes, return to form, and I'm really looking forward to that. But that's in the future.
That's a very, very good answer. Sam, same question to yourself. Dragonflight, from what you've seen so far, is it a return to form?
Yeah, so I agree with what Manny said. It's all about, is Blizzard going to listen to the community? Because that has always been the sticking point. It is always what we give them this feedback, and then we still get Covenant abilities. We still get the ripcord that didn't get pulled, the ripcord that didn't get pulled until 9.1.5. And so the way that the alpha is working right now gives me hope, though, because they're giving us these slices, right? Instead of everything all at once. They're giving us individual, they're giving us classes talent trees right off the bat in a way that we get to test it early, and hopefully they take that feedback and they start saying, okay, we've heard your feedback and we're going to start tooling around with this. And that's also one of the reasons why I like that we don't have all of the talents just yet, because as much as I would love to mess around with the warrior talent tree, and as much as I'm waiting with bated breath every time, I'm also, okay, I'm going to mess around with the paladin talent tree, which super broken right now. And so we can give that kind of feedback to
I think the
Blizzard.
shaman trees are super broken too, but in a different direction.
Exactly. Exactly. It's all about, is Blizzard going to listen, though? Because these talent trees are such a fun, they're so much fun because it allows, yeah, of course you're going to have your cookie cutter build that you're going to do, but yeah, then you go on and you can still have the granularity, but it just depends on, okay, this isn't fun in the talent tree. Blizzard.
Yeah.
It's in your ball. It's in your court.
Yeah, very true. Very, very good answers from the both of you, actually. I really appreciate that, because that is, as you mentioned, the art team, they've been knocking it out of the park, Manny, for years. The music team have been knocking it out of the park. The cinematics team, although we haven't seen any from Dragonflight yet, they've been keeping those under wraps, which is quite clever. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the both of you for taking the time out of your day to come and join me here on the Dragonflight Consortium. But before we go, Manny, for the folks out there that want to get themselves a little bit more villainous, where can they find you?
So I can be found everywhere as TruVillianManny, true without the E. That is, of course, on my show for Azeroth, which you can find on Twitter as Faz Podcast. And I am actually also doing short WoW news on TikTok as well. So check that out. TruVillianManny without the E.
There we go. And Sam, you've got a bit of a big event coming up this weekend. This will, I'm pretty sure that you'll be doing the event maybe when this goes up, depending on timing. But for the folks out there that want to find more about this event and more about you, where can they find you?
Well, to touch on the event real quick, it is going to be the Mythic Plus charity Pro-Am, put on by Raider.io and Team Liquid. We are trying to raise as much money for charity as we can. It is going to be 6 teams. They are all going to be battling it out for a $25,000 prize pool, all of which is going to go to charity. So the whoever comes into first place is going to get the larger share of that prize pool, and then as it goes on, so on and so forth. So if you want to check that out, guys, it's going to be on twitch.tv/Team Liquid, or you can also do rio.gg/Pro-Am 2022. And as for myself, if you want to catch me, you can find me on most platforms. It is going to be SamTalkz, except for Twitter, which is at the SamTalkz.
Oh, the SamTalkz. There is only one SamTalkz, and he's right here. And as for me, you can find me on twitch.tv/TheKexman, because there is only one Kexman. And you can also find me on Twitter, nice and simply, at Kexman. But from us here at the Dragonflight Consortium, that is it for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Be sure to subscribe to Bonus Roll Productions for more of these shows. There'll be one coming up next week as well. Weekly alpha videos and daily alpha videos coming out as well. But from myself, from Manny, from Sam, take care.